Hey everyone, Justin here from the Hang Fire podcast. I'm here today with a very special chat because I was able to sit with the amazingly talented Paulina Almira, who is the artist and designer behind the new Rolling Stones album artwork for Hackney Diamonds. She has done loads of other projects and is super talented. I couldn't wait to speak with her and to talk to her about her work. So thank you so much, Paulina, for taking the time. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here is Paulina Almira. Yeah, well, this is a big time because everything sort of is finally out. And so this is probably now a rush to finally realize that you did the work and people are seeing it.
Yeah, with projects in the past, I've learned the hard way not to get excited until I actually see the work in person, like until everything has been released. So that's what I've been doing for this project. And now that it's here, I'm like, okay, time to get excited now.
Yeah, well, you're in good company because we're all excited. You know, we're all seeing the fantastic work. And before we get into all those details, I'd love to, if we can, kind of go back a little bit, kind of in your beginnings and stuff, because and I mentioned to you before, I mentioned to the people watch, I don't have a background in art, so I can't say that I know all the details, but I have such interests and curiosities about people who do this. And from a musician standpoint, I see that there are things related into our instincts of how to create when, you have a blank palette and now you want to create something. So with that in mind, do you recall this germ of a creative, beginning, starting very early on in your early life, or was it something that came in later in stages?
Um, I've always been pretty artistic ever since I was a toddler. I've been drawn to the more creative things. I've always been into coloring and drawing. Very early on, my family knew that I was probably going to pursue something creative as a career. And it was consistent throughout my childhood. Even in class, I would be recognized for being the artistic one, the creative one. And when I got to college, the major I chose was design related. And that's when I started digital illustration. Because prior to that, I was doing painting, drawing, traditional art mostly. And when I got to college, that's when I discovered digital art. And then I started doing little projects here and there, freelancing a little bit on the side. And then after that, I decided to pursue fashion because I thought fashion is the ultimate goal. That's what I really want to do. So I did that in New York. I went to Parsons and I did the whole Devil Wears Prada internship thing, which the movie's pretty accurate. That's what I'm going to say. But I realized after I graduated, which was COVID, I graduated in 2020, and that was when COVID hit. And that's when I realized working in fashion is probably not sustainable because the industry it was not doing well when COVID hit. So I thought, I'm not sure I want to work in an industry that isn't pandemic proof. So I had to pivot. I had to pivot and do something else, and I didn't know what that was going to be. And while I was broke and figuring it out, I decided to do, one digital art piece every day. And I posted it all on Instagram, and that's how I gained a following, and that's how my agency reached out to me, and that's how we started working together, and we're here now.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's quite a little journey there. And I'm fascinated that the fashion design was such a focus for you, and considering you were creative growing up, there's a bridge there, isn't there, with at least drawing and being artistic, and then converting that over to fashion. That must be quite. There's a link there between the two areas.
Yeah, painting and clothes, I think, have been my biggest interests and passions throughout my entire life. Like, out of all the things I've tried, those two have been consistent. So, yeah, till now, I'm still very much interested in the world of fashion. But I don't think I could work there or pursue a career there. I feel like art is more sustainable and less stressful.
Yeah, I bet. I bet with art and stuff, you can have a little bit of some autonomy in how you work, which is valuable when it's such a delicate process, to create. Well, I'm glad you went down the road you went, because now here you are now. And one of the things that I was enjoying as I was looking through your portfolio and looking through your work was something that I didn't, only because I'm an outsider in art and stuff. And so I didn't know this was a quality that I have enjoyed recently and you embrace in a big way, which is gradients and gradient work. And it's something that I didn't know the word until a couple days ago. So I once I looked up, holy crap! I didn't know that was something that responds to me and really connects with me when I look at visual art, and that seems to be an important aspect for you. Did you ever think about why it was that that's such an element that's important to you in a lot of the work that you do?
It's one of the things that came the most naturally given my medium, which is Adobe Illustrator. So everything I do on the computer. I don't really do paper sketching so much. Most of my process involves going directly into my computer and drawing there and experimenting. And gradients were the most natural way for me to express the kind of emotion, the kind of effect that I wanted to achieve in my work. It's also it's like cheating, like when you paint, you have to manually create like red fading into blue. In the middle, it has to be purple. It has to be like a really smooth line. But on the computer, it's just 2 clicks, red, blue, and it does it for you, So it was easy. And also it looks really nice. It's a way to, like, if you have a canvas, for example, the upper half can be like blue skies and pink butterflies. You create black down below, and immediately it's like a really cool contrast between heaven and hell, for example. So it's easy and it conveys the emotion that I intend to convey. So that's why I gravitate towards it so much. It just makes the most sense with my medium.
Oh, that's fascinating to know because I never thought of it like that. And I think it's that blend going from different areas of the colors to the other that it's very inviting and it lures you in, which I didn't know that was what it was doing whenever I would see things like that. And it's such a subtle, powerful thing to do. And it sounds like it's simple.
Yeah, it is for the most part. And I feel like a lot of my inspiration comes from like vintage posters, retro art from the 80s, like pinup posters and stuff like that. And I noticed that in a lot of these images, what makes them so captivating is the subtle gradients that look like they're airbrushed. Well, it is airbrushing because it's the 80s and 70s. A lot of it was airbrushing, and the gradients are so subtle, but it gives the work that nostalgic feel, especially when I add sparkles to it. It's captivating because it's reminiscent of that time, at least to me. And I'm glad to know that it has a similar effect to my viewers.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely there. I'd love to, if I can, to give a sample of some of the wonderful flavors in the palette that you're working with here. Let me see if I can add this here. But this is some of the first things. And what I love is the vibrancy, and the colors. And the one thing that comes out of it for me is that there's such a joyfulness that comes through. And, I must imagine you're always in a good mood when you're doing this.
No. Ironically, the pieces that come to me the most naturally come when I'm not in a good mood. When I'm
like said like a true artist.
Yeah. Like heartbreak, for example, is the biggest driver of emotion and inspiration.
Fantastic.
People can relate. But then these 3, I feel like I did these when I was in a good mood. The tiger one, I was in like a transitional phase from like a difficult phase to a more stable one. But if you look at my earlier works, like 2021-ish, I was doing a lot of snakes and lots of like dark, moody gradients, and that was a rough time for me. But then the ones you see now, the colorful ones, yeah, I feel like I've been in a much better, more stable emotional and mental state, which is a good thing. But sometimes I can't help but wish, like, can someone please like break my heart so I can produce art faster? It's like I both wish it and wish it wouldn't happen, but then for the art, it's always a good thing.
That, Paulina, that warms my heart. to hear that.
I'm being real.
No, I love it because, I'm such in my own little world because I'm more from a musician background. And as you know, that's how musicians and songwriters get their material is from the pain and the heartbreak and all that stuff. So for me to hear that it works as well over there on that side of the area, it's amazing to me.
For sure, for sure. Ask any artist and they'll tell you, yeah, when I was heartbroken, I did this amazing piece. Yeah. It's pretty universal. I'll go so far as to say that. Even the first single on this album, Angry, it's about heartbreak and frustration and so it's pretty universal, I would say.
Oh, I love to hear that. And, the colors itself express one element of your point of view, but also, it's fun because I'll get into this with one other piece that you have, but the composition itself and what's going on in the images are very fun and they have this fantastical kind of dreamlike aspect to it. And it's a wonderful theme in a lot of your work that is very unique. And I wonder, you must have some fantastic dreams as well, because what you're putting here is really vibrant.
I do have some pretty crazy, vibrant dreams. I do. Um, I wish I could remember them though. A lot of the time they slip away. Like 5 minutes after I wake up, I can barely remember what I dreamt about. But I do have some pretty vibrant, vivid dreams.
So you haven't had a piece yet that was directly inspired by a dream?
I think there's one piece on my page that's like a radio tower with a heart. There are two. I think those I took from a dream, but I think the closest thing actually to a piece that was inspired by a dream of mine is this one on the left, the purple one with the wings. I think my favorite dream of all time and my most vivid to date was about this. I was in this laboratory and there were all these fantastical birds, which were clearly creatures that weren't from this planet because they were like, their feathers were like iridescent and holographic and they were just fantastical, magical beasts. And then all of a sudden, like, the alarm sounded because one of them was escaping or something. And I wish I could have recorded that dream in 4K because it was beautiful. And I think this is the closest I've ever gotten to capturing anything from that dream. But yeah, birds. That was my most vivid dream ever.
Well, you're very lucky to have this ability because very few people can wake up from a dream and go, oh man, I wish I could relive that or have a little sample of that back in my life. And you can actually put it down and save it.
I've always been a very visual person. Everything I can see pictures and words very clearly in my mind. When somebody says something to me, it almost immediately forms into some image in my brain, whether it's a color, a shape, or a movement. I'm pretty good at emotions. Not emotions. I'm pretty good at translating emotions into imagery in my head. Yeah. So, yeah.
I love that correction just to make sure.
That would be a bold statement. I'm really good at handling my emotions.
Wow, very mature, Paulina. But fantastic. I wanna also emphasize some of these other fantastic ones that really caught my eye. I don't know if you're able to tell some of the stories with this one, but this one's a great little story that I loved when I did some of the research on you. But this is one of my favorite ones.
Vice Magazine, 2021, if I'm not mistaken. That was one of my first ever big clients. I wasn't with my agency yet, so I was doing this freelance work independently. And thankfully it was a pretty smooth project. There weren't many miscommunications or anything. I'm sorry if you can hear noise in the background, by the way.
No, you're fine.
Okay. So yeah, the brief was very straightforward and yeah, I didn't really have difficulty with this one. But I really like that they gave me a standard set of colors to work with, and the parameters for this project were very clear, which I think doesn't happen so often. I would say it's like a 50-50 with all my clients when it comes to clarity in terms of creative direction. I'm sorry. But sometimes it's not so clear. But this one, thankfully, was pretty clear. And I really like how it turned out. I feel like a lot of my compositions tend to um, meet in the middle of the canvas. So I'm glad that I was able to put all these elements in the center and still convey a pretty accurate depiction of what the article was talking about. So yeah, this was a fun one to do. And I was
Yeah.
very proud. This was my first one ever that I did independently, that I didn't have to chase a client for payment for.
I bet that's a whole podcast story on its own. All those
Yes.
instances. Well, yeah. I mean, I love this because it really tells a story. It's almost like a little puzzle for me to kind of figure out, and every element there is there purposefully. And so that's one of my favorite ones. And there are just so many ones that really spoke to me. And as I was looking through all the different ones, I could see why, things led the way they did to get to this point. And obviously momentum was building for you. And, there's also a great one on your page. Did you work with for Nike? I'm going to put by the way, I'm going to put all your links on the description so people can go check you out because there's so much good stuff. But there's a Nike one and you work with Gucci. And speaking of big brands, here come the Stones. I mean, the all these brands lining up. And so the Stones, another one of those rich history entities, with history with artists and, in the performing arts and in the artistic world. And this finally came to your area. And how did that come about? That seemed to have been quite a event.
Um, it came about the way all my other projects do, but it was a much bigger shock because I usually get emails from my agent saying, "Hey, we have this new client. If you want to work with them, let me know." So it was like that. She sent me an email and I opened it and I was like, no, 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 Mick Jagger. I was like, who? I was like, yes, of course, I want to work with Mick Jagger. So yeah, I said yes immediately before even like opening the initial brief or anything. I was like, yes, put me on that contract.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't imagine what it would have been in your place to have finally gotten that email saying, "Hey, guess who's calling for you?" And when I saw the images come through, and I'd love to have you share your thoughts on the images in a second as we look at a lot of the different elements you put together. Every time I look at artwork for any kind of band, I always think to myself, I wonder what kind of preparation goes into that. Is it something where it's just a prompt or it's just something that they give you, or did you get to listen to the album beforehand? All those things came to my mind, which is, things that I would love to say. I'd love to talk to the artist about, which is why we're here. So, any information would be so cool to hear.
Yeah, so they started with sending me a design brief and a link to the album, which I heard in March or April this year. So I heard the entire thing ahead of time, which I was freaking out about. I was so excited. And they sent me a design brief, which was pretty straightforward. And they told me, this is the direction we want to go, but we want you to be open to interpret it however you want, because we want to see your vision come through in the artwork as well. So yeah, I had a call with their creative director, Stephen of Studio Fury. That's the studio that they hired to do this whole thing. And we had to talk about the direction, which again, he was super open about. He said, like, this is what we're envisioning, but feel free to do what feels right to you after hearing the album. So after that, I came up with a few paper sketches because clients typically want to see like a quick draft before I go straight into the digital illustration. So I did a few sketches for them. And from there, they chose which ones they wanted me to develop further. I did a few more sketches after that, and they were like, okay, I think this one is most in line with what we're looking for. You can go to digital now. So I did a draft for them on the computer. And I think I did like 4 different iterations before we finally settled on the final artwork. And the whole time I was creating the drafts, it was supposed to be a test period. They called it the test period for Paulina, where they would be just testing to see if I was a good fit for the project. And so it came as a shock to me when it got to draft 5, I think. They were like, congrats, Paulina, well done. And I was like, does that mean I got the job? I'm not sure. So I didn't let myself get excited. And it's only when I got on a call with Steven, he was like, okay, now let's discuss the cover art for the singles. And I was like, wait, did I get the job? I'm not sure. Like, did they like the album art? They were like, yes, Paulina, you're the official artist now. I was like, okay.
Oh, that's fantastic. Surprise.
Yeah.
That's the best way to find out you've got the job, is when you're already on to the next project, the next element of it. Well, that was my suspicion, that I figured, these elements in the artwork is so strong, and there's such a very specific vibe. She must have heard the album, but and I thought to myself that there's such a link between your strengths as an artist and what I'm guessing is the rest of the album. I've only heard one song, obviously, so just with that one song, I can tell that this was a match made in heaven, because they're both very bold, vibes going on. And I assume that was one of the things that you may have picked up on when you heard the music.
Yes, I felt a lot of pressure, actually, because a lot of my work it leans more towards the feminine side of art, if that's a thing. Like, I use a lot of pink and glitter and lots of elements that most would consider very feminine and girly. But then when I heard the album, I was like, okay, I'm not sure if pink and sparkles would be up their alley, but they chose me for a reason. So I feel like there's a way we can make this work. I have to make this work, And it wasn't just me. Like, I got really good creative direction from Stephen, the creative director. It was all very clear. He was very direct with what he wanted, what he liked and didn't like. And he was very good at relaying the information to me from Mick Jagger himself. So there wasn't much confusion. It was pretty straightforward. And yeah, I feel like I achieved what they were looking for, and it's definitely opened up an area of my work that I previously hadn't really been in touch with. I don't gravitate towards, super masculine, angry elements, but this project pushed me in that direction, and I'm glad it did, because now I can maybe more clients in that industry, or bands, or just companies that are looking for that specific kind of vibe can now see the artwork I did for the Stones and be like, hey, Paulina can do this type of work in addition to her typical girly pieces. So yeah, it's a win-win.
Totally. And that's one of the things that I came across when I was looking through your work, was that the word I was constantly coming back to is very graceful. A lot of your work, yes, there's there's the beauty and gracefulness to it. And if there was anyone who had to, put a layer of grace over anger and aggression, I mean, you did the best possible way to make angry a little bit more, anger in general to be a little bit more, palatable. Because, anger and aggression can be a very rough idea,
And I had to ask Stephen, like, is this too much pink? Like, am I allowed to use? Because I felt like it worked, with the angry fist slamming into glass. It felt right to add some pink in there. So, I was hoping that it would be fine, and it wasn't. So that's good for me.
Absolutely. Well, if you don't mind, would you mind if we take a look at some of the stuff that you put together? Yeah, that's be wonderful. The first thing that comes to mind that is what I think is the official standard artwork for the CD and the vinyl, but it's a very provocative image here. Was this the main one that they gave you a little bit of a prompt to go off of?
Yeah, for every artwork I did for them, there was a prompt, there was a brief and some direction.
Yeah, when I first saw this, a lot of ideas came to my mind, and a lot of feelings. And that's the thing about what's great about what you've put together here for this project, was that while you're, quote, trying to, quote, figure it out, you almost get in a battle about trying to not to intellectualize it too much and just want to feel things.
It was kind of hard for me, because when I first heard the album, I was I was overthinking so hard. I took notes on all the lyrics of all the songs. I was thinking like they might ask me to talk about my feelings for each of these songs, so I need to know. So I was writing everything down and trying to analyze each line. And at the end of it, I was just so tired and burnt out. And I'm like, wait, this is not how this is supposed to go. Let me just go by feeling a little bit. So yeah, I like to overthink, and can sometimes be a perfectionist. So I had to learn to let go a little bit and feel a little more, especially since I was told that this was a very emotional album. This was very strong in terms of the feelings they wanted to convey. So I wanted the same to be said about the artwork. So it wouldn't help to just write everything down and analyze every line. 'Cause that would kind of kill the vibe. So they explained the meaning of this Hackney Diamonds to me. So I wanted the cover to reference that a little bit. So the shards of broken glass reference that directly. And I feel like the heart is just something, it's a very me element. I wanted to go by the brief as much as possible, but I didn't want to lose my artistic sensibilities in the process. So, the heart had to be there. And yeah, pink wasn't like it wasn't really part of the initial brief, but I wanted to find a way to include it as well to make it feel like more me. So yeah, it was a balance between going by what the brief said, conveying the emotion that the album intended, and being true to myself. So yeah, that was the biggest hill to climb over. For this one, I think they wanted me to focus, if I remember correctly, they wanted me to focus on the lips and the tongue, which is the official Rolling Stones logo, right? And that was meant to be the main focus of this image. So I didn't really add that many embellishments. I think the eye with the diamond pupil was a pretty good thing to add in there. I think that was part of the direction they gave as well. So yeah, the main focus of this one was the tongue. And I think the hands as well, they wanted me to put that in there. I feel like this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is one of the covers for the vinyl, an alternate cover. Yeah.
I believe this is the blue vinyl
Mhm.
that this is going for. Yeah, very, like I said, very arresting and very provocative. And the next being this you spoke about earlier, but this is a very forceful energy here. And like you said, a little bit different from your other stuff, but you really put it together very, very well.
Thank you. Yes, I think I had to put together 7 different color combinations for this because I was like, I want this to be pink. And Stephen was like, okay, let's see. Maybe pink will work, but show me others just in case. So I put together like 7 different ones. And thankfully, they picked the one with pink. I'm happy about that.
Oh, yeah. No, I think it's, and I love the tongue version on there, which is really what I would love to get to next is that, what you were part of the project was to obviously update the stone's tongue. And is this called the diamond tongue? Is that the official term for this?
I'm not sure if there's an official term. If there is, I'm not aware of what it is. But they told me to reinterpret the flat 2D version, so I made this glass version.
I would love to have an actual glass version of this. Can you somehow make that?
I
Yeah.
was freaking out when I saw this as the backdrop on Jimmy Fallon, and where Jimmy Fallon was holding the cards with this printed on it. I was like, wow, that's me. I did that.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing that, during the live stream, your art was everywhere on the stage, and that must have been quite a moment for you.
Yes, I was screaming alone in my room. Like I was recording my screen and talking to my friends, and we were all freaking out. It was a fun night.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I wanted to emphasize here that, yes, you fantastically updated the Stone's Tongue, and it's based on the original one by, I believe, John Pesh. You follow in the other line of other artists who have imprinted their personalities on the Stones' tongue over the years, and to have your design, posted and put on, the Empire State Building or next to the Eiffel Tower. I mean, when you saw that, that must have been just out of this world, isn't it?
Yeah, my first thought was, is that AI or is that real? You can't tell anymore, but it turned out to be real, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, how gorgeous is that? To have your art there, and I think that deserves a frame on the wall. If you ask me, that's a big moment. And the end natural progression, at least with the Stones, with this is that it ends up in merch, and so
Yeah. I don't even know. I didn't know that there was gonna be merch until my my best friend messaged me saying, like, I'm panic buying all the t-shirts on the website. I was like, t-shirts? What are you talking? And she was like, there are t-shirts you didn't know. And she had pre-ordered the vinyl and everything, and I was clueless. I didn't know that that was a thing. But now I have to order shirts too.
it's a whole set. That's how the Stones work. They want you to have every different version of the logo, and they do a good job of putting it everywhere. So yeah, and this is a great one. This is just a few of the ones on their website. They have so many different things on there with the new design. So that must be a new place for you, that now your art is on objects that are mass produced like that.
Of this scale, yes, it's my first time. I've had stuff printed on shirts before, but nothing this big, nothing this global. So yeah, it's cool.
Wow. So now that it's out, the album will be out in October. Are you still now working to have the excitement build up again? Because it seemed like it was a secretive thing for a long time.
Yes, there's still one cover that I'm supposed to work on. So yeah, I'm waiting for that to be done before I release the excitement fully. Right now it's only at 70% released. There's still 30% that needs to be that's still in storage.
Aha.
We'll wait till October for that to come out.
Oh, very exciting. Oh, so there's more to come then.
Yes.
Out of curiosity, when you as you were preparing for this, did you happen to take a look at old album cover art for the Stones? Are there favorite ones that you enjoyed that stuck out?
Yes, I did, but I didn't want to focus too much on them because I didn't want them to influence what I was doing now. That's something I try to avoid when I'm doing a project. I used to be so obsessed with looking at previous works from the brand or previous creative direction that they had to inform my work. But then I learned as I continued to do this that when clients hire me, they're not looking for me to reproduce what's already been done before. They hired me because they want me to interpret the direction in my own way. So I did have a look briefly at the previous covers, but I didn't focus on them too much. But the ones that stood out to me were have them listed down: Steel Wheel, Let It Bleed, and Voodoo Lounge.
Yeah.
Those were the coolest ones. Steel Wheel is the one with the wheels, right? I really like the in there. It looks vintage. And the cake for
Let It Bleed.
Those are really cool.
Yeah, those a lot of people's favorites is Let It Bleed, especially because all the details, a lot of nice detail in that one, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's reminiscent of, I'm not sure what year that was released. Sorry.
1969, Let It Bleed was.
Okay, then it makes sense for the time. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, very fascinating. And the fact that you put this all together and succeeded so well is just such an inspiring thing to see. And so I'm so happy that everything worked out for you. And it just seems like things will be continuing to grow and go in a great direction for you. So I'm very happy for you. I thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Would you tell everyone where to find you?
You can find me on Instagram. Paulina Almira is my handle. I'm also on TikTok. I'm trying to get back into posting more regularly on TikTok, but I'm also Paulina Almira on there. I have my own website. I have a Behance, and a YouTube channel. So you can find me on all my socials via my handle, Paulina Almira.
And I follow you on Instagram, and I love that you're putting up these daily drawings and so forth. That was a very cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back into, because I used to do one digital piece every single day, but that was before I had any clients or any sort of work. Now it's not really feasible because, I have to juggle that with client work and just living life. Living life, because I used to do one digital art piece every day back when it was COVID and everyone was in lockdown. We couldn't really leave. So it was easy to spend 2 to 8 hours doing art every day. But now that the world is open up again, I don't want to be glued to my screen. So I'm trying to find new ways to be a little more creative every day rather than spending multiple hours on my screen. So we'll see how that progresses.
Wow. Well, so far so good, I would say. And I enjoy your YouTube channel because you put up a couple of good like back behind the scenes things on how you make some of your artwork. And even for me, who's not into art, it makes me want to get it. Like I want to buy a tablet and I want to buy that whole thing. It looks exciting. Yeah, I should. Maybe. If the music thing doesn't work out. Well, Paulina, thank you so much. I encourage everyone to go check out Paulina's work. The links are all in the description below, and I hope everyone goes and checks her out. Paulina, again, congratulations on the success and more success to come.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.